The sun was bleeding orange across the tarmac at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base, and the only sound louder than the desert wind was the metallic clatter of Specialist Riley Kane's wrench against the GAU-8 Avenger rotary cannon. She was elbow-deep inside the A-10's belly, grease streaking her forearms like war paint when the shadow fell across her boots. Colonel Harlan Graves, ramrod straight and eyes like winter steel, stared down at the patch of skin her rolled-up sleeve had accidentally revealed. The tattoo was small, no bigger than a silver dollar, inked in faded black, a tiny warthog silhouette with the words for Dad curled beneath it. The colonel's face drained of color so fast Riley thought he'd been shot. "Kane," he whispered, voice cracking like dry earth. "Where the hell did you get that mark? Hey, if you're already leaning in, hit that subscribe button real quick so you never miss a story that hits this hard." Riley wiped her hands on her flight suit, heart jackhammering. She'd spent 4 years keeping that tattoo hidden, rolling sleeves down in summer, lying about the scar stories the other maintainers swapped over warm beer. The ink was the last piece of her father she had left, etched the week after his casket came home draped in the flag. Captain Daniel Kane, callsign Reaper, had flown the A-10 like it was an extension of his soul until an RPG over Kandahar turned him into a memory and her into an orphan at 17. She'd joined the Air Force the day she turned 18, lied about her age on the recruiter forms, and clawed her way into the 355th Maintenance Squadron just to touch the same aircraft that had carried him into the sky. Colonel Graves wasn't supposed to know any of that. He'd been her father's wingman, the man who radioed Reaper's hit while the desert swallowed the jet in flame. The official report called it mechanical failure. The unofficial rumor in the hangar bays whispered friendly fire. Graves had signed the paperwork, closed the case, and moved on to bigger stars on his collar. Until now. "Sir?" Riley's voice came out steadier than she felt. The colonel's eyes flicked to the cannon, then back to the tattoo, and something ancient and terrified flickered across his face. "Step away from the aircraft, airman," he ordered, but his hand trembled on the radio clipped to his chest. Riley didn't move. The wrench felt heavier in her palm, like it had turned to lead. Around them, the flight line kept humming. Fuel trucks, crew chiefs, the distant roar of an F-16, but in that moment the desert shrank to just the two of them and 30 millimeters of unresolved history. Graves took one step closer. "That tattoo, your old man had the same one, same spot, same words." His voice dropped to a rasp. "He showed it to me the night before the mission. Said if anything happened, make sure his kid never flew angry." Riley's throat closed. She'd never met anyone who knew about the ink. Her father had kept it hidden under his own flight suit, a private vow between him and the plane. The colonel's radio crackled. "Tower to Graves, you copy? Birds on the schedule for live fire in 20. He didn't answer. Instead, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded photograph, edges worn soft from years of handling. He held it out like it burned him. Riley took it with grease-black fingers. The picture showed 2 young pilots grinning beside an A-10, arms slung over each other's shoulders. Her father on the left, Colonel Graves on the right, 25 years younger, before the stars, before the guilt. On Graves' forearm, faded but unmistakable, was the exact same tattoo. Riley's knees buckled. She caught herself on the cannon barrel, cold metal grounding her as the world tilted. "You were his best friend," she said, the words scraping out. "You let them blame the jet." Graves looked suddenly old, the desert wind whipping silver through his crew cut. "I didn't have a choice, Riley. The round that hit him. It came from our own bird, my bird, jamming malfunction. The investigation would have ended my career, ended the squadron. Your dad radioed me to say he forgave me right before—" He couldn't finish. The photograph fluttered to the tarmac between them. Riley stared at the cannon, at the 30mm rounds waiting to be loaded, each one longer than her forearm. She thought of every night she'd spent in the hangar, whispering to the jet like it could carry messages to a father who'd never come home. She thought of the promotion board that had denied her crew chief slot because Kane's too emotional about the Warthog. She thought of the way Graves had looked through her for 4 years, like she was a ghost. The wrench slipped from her fingers and clanged against the deck. "You don't get to carry his forgiveness in your pocket like a get-out-of-jail-free card," she said, voice low and lethal. "You get to carry it in here." She tapped the GAU-8's feed chute. "Every round this gun fires from now on is going to remind you what silence cost." Graves opened his mouth, but the flightline loudspeaker cut him off. "Maintenance 1, report to the armory. Live fires green." Riley scooped up the wrench, climbed the ladder, and resumed torquing the cannon mount like nothing had happened. The colonel stood frozen until Master Sergeant Lopez jogged up, saluted, and asked if the bird was ready. Graves managed a nod, but his eyes never left Riley's back. That night the squadron hit the range. Riley rode in the maintenance chase truck, headset crackling with pilot chatter. When the A-10 rolled in hot, the GAU-8 spun up with its signature snarl, brrt, and the desert erupted in fire and sand. Every impact felt personal. She watched Graves through binoculars from the observation bunker, saw him flinch with each burst like the rounds were stitching his conscience back together. 3 days later, Riley's promotion packet landed on her bunk. Approved, effective immediately. Signed by Colonel Harlan Graves. Taped to it was a single post-it. "Your dad would have been proud." "So am I. Range is yours whenever you need it." No apology, no explanation, just the closest thing to penance a career officer could offer. She pinned her new stripes in the hangar at 0200, alone except for the A-10 looming in the shadows. She rolled up her sleeve, traced the tattoo with a thumb now permanently stained with hydraulic fluid, and whispered, "I flew angry, Dad, but I flew true." Somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled across the desert. Maybe a storm, maybe the echo of a cannon that would never forget. Riley Kane became the youngest crew chief in the 355th, the one pilots requested by name, because her birds never jammed, never faltered. And every time Colonel Graves walked the flight line, he paused beside her jet, eyes on that tiny tattoo peeking from her sleeve, and the desert wind carried away whatever words he couldn't say. So tell me, from which part of the country are you watching this video right now? Drop it in the comments, I read every single one.